Mailbag Friday. Let's get through this. Decent amount of questions. They don't seem to come till Friday. I send out a little reminder, but keep that in mind as things get going. People are doing some drafts in the coming weeks. Probably not much stuff going on in February besides the real serious stuff and the people that are drafting a bunch of teams. But MLBDataWarehouse.com/P/mailbag. Search my Twitter for mailbag, or it's on the homepage and you'll find the link to send in a question. Or just ask me on Twitter or whatever, and I will point you in the right direction. So we do this every Friday. Lots of good things are happening now. I feel like I am going to finish the Phillies team preview in the coming days. Probably this weekend I'll finish it. I just have the pitchers left and then I'll be done. I'll have written all 30 team previews again. And they are out up through the Padres. There's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, like there's only a handful left to publish. Probably just going to ram all those out here by but next week I'll probably just release all of them and that'll be done. And then we can really move into hardcore draft stuff. But it's such a nice base to have because I've written up, I didn't go as deep this year because what I did in the last couple of years is I looked at like any player I thought might be able to be relevant, but it seems like every guy I picked out of AAA or whatever, it didn't happen. And I wasted a lot of words and fooled myself and stuff. And it was a little bit fun to do, but I wanted to kind of focus on the guys that'll definitely matter, focus on the top 400 and just get people really ready to for the drafts, for those 25 to 30 round drafts, just to be able to really know the player pool super well there. Because most of the deep guys, the AAA guys anyway, like you don't have to know that stuff during the draft anyway. So pretty good work. Some better than others, team previews, but they're, 24, 25 of them are out there for you to read. You can even listen to it if you get the Substack app. It's not me. Well, I did some podcasts for different teams. But you can, if you're on the Substack app, there's a play button and you can actually have it read it to you. So if you're driving or something, or you just don't want to sit there and spend the time to read it, you can have a fake person read it to you. And it's not bad. It really doesn't sound too bad. So all that going on, the ranks are out. They need to be adjusted a lot. But pitchers and catchers reporting in a couple weeks, it'll be February the next time we do anything here. It's January 30th right now. And February hopefully is quick. I mean, it's a shorter month, right? They didn't change that. 28 days still. And we have some, I'll be watching the Olympics and some business. So maybe it'll be a little bit quicker of a month because January has been rough. So let's go to the mailbag. I just realized that I meant to actually come up with answers to some of these questions before I started this, but I didn't. So we're going to have to go a little bit on the fly, but we'll share the screen at times of this and we'll do that. Question 1 from CK. What are your thoughts on O'Neill Cruz and Dalton Varsho, playing time and stats? It's another situation where the Pirates preview is out. You could go just read that about O'Neill Cruz. He would have been the first or second guy on there, so he would have been in the free section. So the best way to find out about just what I think about players is just go to that team's team preview, become a paid subscriber, and read it. But if it's one of the team's best hitters, like the first 2 or 3 or 4 hitters are always free there. So you could figure that out for Cruz. But Cruz, general points, I think he's priced right. I think last year he was like a top 60 pick, and this year he's closer to 100. I could get that right. And another point about all of this is just like, we're talking about ADP, and everybody's talking about ADP. We're using NFBC stuff, which I guess that's probably right because since these drafts are so common now and they're like, there's so many of them that are going off way earlier than other sites that I assume more and more every year the other websites, ADPs and default ranks and stuff kind of model those, which is too bad because there's a pretty sharp ADP. Like it's a disadvantage for sharp players that the hoi polloi get to use like a pretty solid group of preset rankings in your draft room and stuff. If you could just show up to a draft, if all online drafts had no preset rankings at all, like the good players would just really dominate them, which is too bad, but you gotta live with what you have. Let's pull up let's share this window here. So O'Neal Cruz, yeah, ADP's around 100. And that's a lot better. Obviously, it's 40, 50 picks lower, but it was after he hit 200. The story with Cruz is simply he will hit for a higher batting average. He's not going to hit 200 again. He will at least get to his 20 home runs or something, and the steals are nice. 30 steals. He had a bunch last year, led the league for a while. Really rough second half. Pirates, there was a lot of that on the Pirates, just like him and Brian Reynolds both really underperformed their expected batting averages and stuff. So I'm not saying Cruz is going to hit 260. I'm saying he's going to hit 230, 240 with 22 home runs and maybe 30 steals. Playing time wise, you asked about that. There's a concern maybe that they go back to not playing him much against lefties. They weren't starting him before last year against lefties, but they kind of didn't have. I think last year they wanted him to play every day to get better at center field. He was their center fielder, now moving from shortstop. And they also just didn't have anybody better to put in. Now this year with Jake Mangum able to play center field, he's pretty good against. It's the same thing. I think he's pretty for what he does. He's just like contact and speed, so he can play both sides. So yeah, maybe you see Cruz sitting a little bit more against lefties. Now that's not great for the runs and RBIs and home runs. Can't do any of that while you're on the bench, but it is good for his batting average. He wasn't hitting home runs against lefties anyway. Like, you didn't really like him last year. If you had him and he was up against a lefty, you kind of felt like he wasn't playing anyway. So it's not even all that bad. Like, the average will be much better if he does. Like, even better, rather, it's going to get better no matter what. But if he doesn't have to face lefties as much this year, that would actually be pretty good for the batting average, the slugging, the on-base percentage and stuff. So it could actually be a pseudo good thing, but obviously runs, RBIs, home runs, he'll lose some there if that happens. But I do think I absolutely don't think he's in a platoon all of a sudden. He's going to play probably half the time against lefties would be my guess, and every time against righties. But it might be a little bit different this year. So I like the price enough. I mean, I think the steals and the home runs are enough to justify out 100. And there's still like a hit, his swing is so powerful. So has all that bat speed, all that exit velocity stuff. I kind of doubt he'll ever turn into a 30 homer guy because he just doesn't seem to be able to lift the ball. And with all the whiffing he does and with just how big he is, it's pretty tough to change things, I guess. So maybe you don't have 30 homer upside or anything like that, but I think you can get 25 bombs, 35 steals, and a 240 batting average. And that would be pretty awesome at pick 100. Flip side is that he kind of just repeats last year, hits 210, 18 homers, 30 steals. Like, that's not all that great. That would probably be bad for that price, but on balance, I think it's fine. Dalton Varsho, yeah, so there's an interesting. Maybe should I do this? Should I show? Because the Blue Jays preview is not out yet. But I found, Varsho was an interesting name. So you won't be able to read about this one yet, but it's coming out soon. Varsho last year, 71 games played, so he missed a lot of time. He missed the beginning of the season, came back and got hurt again. He hit 20 homers in 71 games played, though. He was, I think I wrote it, he was one of the best home run rate guys in the league. So 20 homers in 71 games was a 7.4% home run rate. It was, I thought I put the leaderboard here. I must have tweeted it. It was like a top 6 or 7 home run rate. So he was in a ton of home runs. A 238 batting average, though, and 2 steals, a 5% attempt rate. So it was one category for him. He was hitting home runs. He's not great against lefties. He's a low batting average. And the thing about Varsho that's so interesting is his expected batting averages. His 4 years of expected batting averages are 213, 229, 185, and 226. So this is not like an O'Neal Cruz situation, just to keep that comparison going, where he might be able to hit 240. No, like Dalton Varsho, this is who he is. He strikes out a lot. He hits a ton of fly balls. That's the difference. Cruz hits plenty of ground balls, plenty of line drives. Those are good for batting average. Varsho's hitting a ton of fly balls, like 38% fly ball rate's one of the highest in the league. Depending on if you're using Fangraphs or Savant, you'll see a different number there. But he is up there to do one thing, and that's hit the ball out of the ballpark. And that worked well for him last year. I mean, it turned into an 833 OPS. That's an overperformance. He's not going to have that home run rate again. Batting average is going to be low. But if he plays 150 games, he'll probably hit 26 homers, but he's going to hit 220. And the 12%, 5% attempt rates on the bases the last couple of years, not really making you think there's steals coming either. So, 220 batting average, 25 homers, 5 steals. That works in some cases, but I don't think there's any kind of upside with him. And I think people will, I think he'll be overdrafted after what we saw. That those 20 home runs in such a little span of time will make people a little bit excited. And I think that is probably a trap. So I wouldn't do that for Dalton Varsho this year. That said, he will play because he's an excellent center fielder. So you have the playing time locked in at least, if he can stay healthy. Who would be a better dynasty asset, Andy Pages or Carson Benj? Higher ceiling in 2026 and on. I haven't looked at that much at Carson Benj. So the immediate thing, I did look at Pages just recently. I did the Dodgers. So this is a good question, and I don't have an immediate answer for you. But if your question is ceiling, I think it's going to be Benj. So with the unknown, because we haven't seen Carson Benj, right? We will see him this year, if not on opening day. We're kind of thinking maybe he's an opening day guy for the Mets. And he does kind of look like across the board, pretty nice toolsy guy. Could be a 2020 guy out of the gate. I think even Tim said that in some of the Mets stuff and some of the prospect stuff we've done. So you can go back, listen to the Mets prospect preview, listen to redraft hitter prospects. He was mentioned on there as well. So Tim's pretty into that. And if you look at the F scores and stuff, it looks pretty good. So with that unknown though, because we don't know how well he'll do this year. Like if you're drafting this year, you certainly take Pages because he's probably at least a 75% player for the Dodgers in center field. They don't really have a great center fielder. It's like him and Edman. And I think they'd prefer him. Edman might have to play second base because Kim is bad. They don't really have a great option there. So I think Pages is going to play a lot for the Dodgers. And immediately, that's a pretty nice place to be. Hit 27 homers last year. I don't think that repeats. Only a 8.4% barrel rate, 16% air pull, like a 103.8, 90th percentile EV on fly balls. Nothing really makes you think that he's a 27 homer dude. But he had some steals. He had a 271 batting average, 262 expected batting average, and a good amount of counting stats with the Dodgers. So you take him for now, but I think that might be kind of close to the ceiling for him. I don't think he's ever been a highly touted prospect, and none of the skills scream much, but he can be a solid player, and he's on the Dodgers, so you like him for now. The upside play is Benj. Let me pull up the prospect profile for him just while we're here. I'm not showing the screen here, but just to give you an idea of what generally to expect long term for Benj. He last year had a 281 batting average, 471 slug, 15 homers, 18% K rate, 13% walk rate. Had a 15.5% barrel rate, 28% fly ball rate, 11% air pull, 105.9 EV90, and those are all AAA numbers for Benj. Also pretty good on the bases, 22 steals last year. He had an 85% success rate, so that's all good. Kind of just a, cross the board prospect, a 5-tool. There's a question about that coming up. I guess it's not really 5 tools, right? Because that's when you're traditionally talking about tools, you're talking about defense and throwing, I think, too. But on the F scores here, you see 109 power, so 9 points above average power, hit tools above average, disciplines above average, speeds above average, just across the board above average, 153 adjusted WRC plus. He was pretty young to be in AAA. He'll debut as a 22-year-old if he makes the club right away. So to answer the question pretty clearly, Benj for me. So, but again, it's hard to trade away the known thing. That Pages can hit major league pitchers to some extent. Well, you don't know that for sure about Benj yet, but answer your question is Benj. Who are your favorite hitters and pitchers to target in the later rounds of drafts this year, says Frankie. So this is one of the ones I promise you, I meant to have this answer ahead of time, but we will get it done. We'll look at the ADP here. I don't know what you mean by later round exactly. We'll start at 350. Let's look at pitchers first. So on the screen here, make that a little bit bigger. We're seeing the ADP 350 through We'll just scroll through here. I'll give you some of the names I like. If you've read the team previews, you'll already know most of these names, but Simeon Wood Richardson, big fan of his at around 350. Jose Soriano, if you're in a points league at 350, just know that there's not much upside there, but just a good value. Cade Cavalli. I wrote the Nationals like preview third, and I guess I just got a little bit too excited or something because I'm way higher than the consensus on him, but not many other people are talking about him and not many people like him. And maybe that means that, I don't know, maybe that'll make me look really smart if he does kind of blast off. But what I saw, I really liked. So check out the Nationals preview for that. I also draft him at 350. Like there's no real risk there. Good fastball, interesting swing strike rate and stuff. There's a little bit of a small sample, and he does still need to make improvements and add secondaries and stuff, but his fastball looks like very promising. Keep going down the list. I don't think Mike Soroka is terrible. Again, no ceiling, but he'll get innings in Arizona, 1-year deal. He still have to prove something. The Diamondbacks don't have a lot of arms behind him. It's like, who is it? Erod, Merrill Kelly, him, and then Ryan Nelson, and then Burns. So if he's pitching terribly when Corbin Burns gets back, like maybe they ditch him or something. But I don't know. He had an interesting, good command and a pretty actually decent fastball. So I think he'll give up some home runs, and he's never going to be great. But for ADP 400, I think that's fine. Keep going here. Garrett Whitlock, just I guess it's a case with Whitlock where he's not good for standard roto because he's going to be a reliever and not the closer. Assuming that Chapman is anything like he was last year, Chapman's the saves guy. Whitlock, 8th, 7th, 8th inning guy, but he's good. I mean, he's underrated. He was one of the best relievers in the league last year, and maybe some multiple inning stuff. I guess we're past the point of him going back to the rotation, but he was really impressive. So if you're in some kind of league that rewards like good relief without needing the saves, if you're in a holds league or something like that, I like Whitlock a lot. I think you're getting a really nice price on him while he's among the elites in terms of ratios and strikeouts and stuff, like really good. Thomas White, if you think the Marlins will be decent this year, he should be very good as soon as he gets up. Not going to happen on opening day. So if you're, don't use a bench spot on him like that. And there's no guarantee that anybody comes up and immediately dominates. But if there's one like a non-debuted pitcher this year that I would want to have some shares of, or that I'm going to want to be picking up as soon as it's getting called up, it's probably Thomas White. Keep going down here. We're into the mid 400s now. I mean, the Cardinals guys are kind of interesting. Dustin May gets a new spot. He'll make a bunch of starts for the Cardinals. Their rotation is so rough looking. So he's certainly in there. He's not going to get pushed out by anybody. And it's a better ballpark and another year removed from injuries and stuff. I mean, he pitched terribly last year, but he stayed healthy. So maybe just getting another year away from all that elbow stuff on a new team, new environment could help him. I like that. That Leahy guy too, he's really cheap for the Cardinals, but he could be a decent, he could be an average pitcher for a price that's super, super free. And you can kind of benefit like that, just taking advantage of the Cardinals being so bad that some of these guys are just going to have to make extra starts than maybe they would. Sean Burke, big fan of his, ADP 480. I was surprised how cheap he is. He had just horrible command early on. This is in the White Sox preview, of course. Really locked it down late, stopped walking people later on and let some of the good stuff he has play. So I think he can take a step forward and maybe even be a standard league-ish kind of pitcher. And he's like a last-round pick in most leagues. You probably don't have to draft him in like a 12-team league or something like that. You can kind of just let him go and see what you have after the first couple starts. But you would have to think he's making the third or fourth start for the White Sox this year. So like Sean Burke. Anybody else? I mean, we're into the 500s now looking at these names. JT Ginn, I think I'm fine with him. Ground baller, good sinker for the Athletics. Not going to be good. You're kind of like Jose Soriano would be an absolute best case scenario for him, which isn't great for most fantasy leagues. But if anybody can kind of beat this park problem for the Athletics, I think a lot of these Athletics pitchers are very cheap because everybody's afraid of the park. But Ginn is their one guy that has a good ground ball rate, so he might be able to kind of beat it more than them. But his other stuff isn't very good. There's no real ceiling with him. People are forgetting about Cutter Crawford. I don't think he makes the rotation initially, but if a couple injuries happen, which they usually do, Cutter Crawford could end up in the Red Sox rotation. He missed last year, I believe, the whole thing with injuries. The year before that, he just gave up. I think he might have given up the most home runs in the league. But other than that, other than those two problems of giving up a bunch of home runs and not being healthy, pretty big problems. But 3 years ago, he was pretty decent. Maybe he can snap back to something somewhat worthwhile. Quinn Matthews, another Cardinals guy to maybe just speculate on. If he can get that command back, we've talked a lot about him here. Long story short, with Quinn Matthews, he was dominant minor league pitcher 2 years ago, and then last year just lost all command, had like a 17% walk rate. But Tim likes to blame the AAA ABS stuff for it. I think that's a cop-out. I don't think you can blame all of 17. I mean, maybe you can blame a few points of that, but if he gets back to what he did the year before, like obviously his focus is going to be on throwing strikes, and if he can do that, it's got some pretty good stuff as a lefty, decent velo, so he's interesting. We'll have to watch the Brewers thing. Robert Gasser and Aaron Ashby are a little bit interesting because with Peralta gone, the rotation is very much like who's going to throw these innings. They've got 162 starts to make. You can only make so many bullpen games, right? Brewers probably will lead the league in bullpen games this year, but Gasser came up as a starter. Same with Ashby. They're both left-handed, so one of those guys I think is going to end up at some point in a rotation role. And my money would be on Gasser right now. I think that's kind of how he's being drafted, and that could work out. Again, not a ceiling, not great elite stuff or anything like that, but a good pitcher, crafty guy. He could definitely overperform. One more Cardinals guy, Richard Fitz. I think he's just a little bit underrated. I mean, I thought his fastball was okay. It's not going to be great. The ERA is not going to be anything special, but could you get like 12 wins and 140 strikeouts out of him? I think you could. One more, JP Sears, going from he was on the Yankees and then he was on the Athletics, like pretty rough places to pitch. He did pitch in the Coliseum, but last year, then he got moved to the Padres last year, and it wasn't good with the Padres last year either. But this is another situation with the Padres where they have Michael King and they have Joe Musgrove, and I'm missing somebody, some main guy, right? But there's like 3 actual major league pitchers on the roster, and JP Sears is probably going to be their 4th or 5th starter. And I don't think he's as bad as he's been. I mean, he has pitched I think he's given up the most home runs of the last 2 years, or at least the highest rate or something like that. But good ballpark for it to get better. So really down here, all you're looking for are guys that will pitch better than the past because they're so cheap. River Ryan, the Dodgers, he's returning, big velo guy. He's been hurt for a while. And then, if he finds his way into the Dodgers rotation somehow, it could be interesting. But, there's almost no path to him like making 20 starts for them and throwing 100 innings or something like that. But last guy, Jackson Wiggins, Cubs, top pitching prospect. Seems like they'll need him at some point. And he's at ADP 578. Again, like more ceiling than the rest of the guys we talked about, but he's not like a Skeens or he's not like a Chase Burns, but he could be a solid SP3, SP4 in the majors. It seems like big guy, deeper pitch mix, seems like all the makings of a solid MLB arm. And you might be seeing him in May or June if the Cubs, really need some pitching help. It's not a good pitching staff. It's deep enough to not need him right away, but if he's pitching well in AAA, they could certainly use, I think he'll be one of their top 5 before long. How about hitters? We can do the exclude values there. Go to hitters past ADP 350. Isaac Collins, he will be a very good pick, especially in points leagues, if we find out that he's going to be an everyday player for the Royals. We just don't know that yet. It's a good bet, though. They traded for him. The outfield there is not very good looking. So, again, no real ceiling on him. I think the power kind of goes away, but he could be a decent average guy. Maybe he's at the top of the lineup, steals 10 bases or something like that. Aiden Miller, if he can find his way into the Phillies lineup, I think that will happen, but he's 21 years old. Just a really good-looking prospect. I'm not saying that he won't have any growing pains or any adjustment period or anything like that, but if you're looking for the prospect hitters that could make a big impact in fantasy this year, he would be near the top of the list. Other late-round hitters we like, Jorge Soler, probably a little bit overlooked. The power is dissipating, but he's still a powerful bat. Him and Josh Bell as well. Like, those are 2 guys you can get really cheap. They can probably hit you 20 home runs without killing you anywhere. It's not going to help you in batting average, and they're not going to steal bases, but they can hit 240 with 20 to 25 homers. I don't think that's crazy to think about. Scrolling down more, looking for more late-round hitters. Jared Triolo, Pirates still have not added a third baseman, as a lot of people are thinking they will. So that would be him. If they don't sign anybody, it's Triolo at third. And even if they do, maybe they just play him at short. I think they want to play him a lot. Had a really nice end of the year last year. first base, third base, shortstop eligibility. So, he's a potential 12 homer, 15 steal, 280 batting average guy, and he could play almost every day. So that's pretty good. If you're looking for like the deep league catcher punt, just to like, not have to spend a pick and whatever. If you just want to go totally free for your bench catcher or something like that, Joe Mack, I don't think he'll make their team out of camp, but he's a power hitting catcher for the Marlins. And I don't think Augustine Ramirez, however you say it, is going to stick defensively. They want his bat to play. I think he'll move to DH, first base, or something like that. And Joe Mack will get in there, hit some home runs for you this summer. So keep that name in mind. Joshua Baez, Carson Williams, both of these guys. So Carson Williams might make the Rays. He might be the opening day shortstop. Excellent defender, but he's like probably a 200 batting average guy. I just think that he can get to 2020. He's got power and speed. He can be a 2020 guy. Excuse me. There's a work call to deny. No thanks, buddy. Not great. We're going to have to put myself in do not disturb. Pardon the interruption. This is what happens when you're there we go. Rolling with a real job at the same time. Other late round hitters. So Carson Williams is probably not, but again, like maybe he can hit 15 homers, maybe he can hit 15 steals while he's just in the lineup every day because they need the shortstop defense. Joshua Baez, kind of same situation. He probably won't make the team out of camp for the Cardinals, but he's got big power, big speed combo, probably low batting average as well, but target of mine. Jake Myers, just maybe, does he have to play again in center for the Astros? Like he can hit 10 home runs, he can steal 15 bases and play a lot. At this point, you're kind of just looking for dudes that'll play. Zach Cole as well. Astros outfield battle is one to watch. There might be some real value in that Astros outfield. We just don't know who it's going to be. They haven't had a good outfield since Tucker left, really. So a lot of these guys have a shot. There's even some guys below that, like a couple other minor league guys that have kind of stood out. Zach DeCenzo, if he's back in the outfield, because they said they're going to put Altuve back at second, which opens up some playing time. And a lot of these guys have some skills. So I would keep an eye on that position battle in the spring and see what's up. Ryan Waldschmidt, Arizona prospect, might be able to make the team out of camp too, and good tools there. So I'd be interested in that. None of these prospect guys I would use like a bench spot on in my draft. Like I don't really want to stash any of these guys in particular, just because hitters especially like have such a tough time adjusting. They have that adjustment period. But if you have minor league stash spots or something like that, like it's all good. Jacob Melton too is awfully cheap for a guy the Rays went out to get, home power and speed. So I like him. There's plenty more, but hopefully that answers your question enough to satisfy you. And I should probably like kind of speed this up because that might have been an important work call or something like that. Okay. Who are the prospects you would truly consider 5-tool from Brett? I don't know, man. Like, that's a question for Tim, and Tim isn't here. Maybe Doc, but I will show you. We'll give you some answer. By using the prospect analysis dashboard. And the way you can do that is you can go to the hitter grading tab. We'll look at guys that had at least 300 plate appearances in the minors last year. And we'll do a 105 hit tool at least. We'll do a 105 power at least, and a 105 speed at least. So again, the question of 5 tools typically mean like fielding is involved in that. What you mean, I think, is well, I don't know what you mean, but typically in the fantasy game, we don't care about fielding. But in terms of guys that can give you power, speed, and average, like the results here are this quick query: Connor Griffin, Daniel Ortiz, Dylan Beavers, Wilfredo Antunez. Dalen Lyle shows up here, which is interesting. I don't really think he has much major league power. Hector Rodriguez is a Reds guy, kind of sneaky there. Starlin Nunez, Matthew Lugo, some of these guys I haven't even really heard of. And there's probably some dudes here that Tim would throw in. Nate George, good name from the Orioles. So I don't know. I shouldn't be the one to answer that. But you can use the F scores to kind of give you a jump start on that. So if you watch that segment, you can see how I did that. And I will, reach out to Tim, ask that same question to Tim at Fantasy Ace Ball. He will reply to you. you consider the implementation of ABS seems like it could be a meaningful boost for hitters who really know the zone? Did you mean, I guess Caleb means that, did I consider it for like my rankings or something? I don't think so. I did some research on that when it came out, but the thing is that teams are only going to have one or two challenges a game, right? Let me look up the rule there. Teams get 2 challenges per game. Successful challenges are retained. Unsuccessful ones are lost. So it's just not going to happen that frequently. It's not going to be freewheeling where they can just question anything they want. If it was, then I think you were right, and I think we should boost some guys who are, really good at knowing where the pitches are, and they can kind of call out those bad calls and stuff. But it goes both ways too, because the pitcher can challenge as well, right? So, or is that not pitcher? Yeah, batter, pitcher, or catcher. Yeah, the catcher or the batter can challenge it on their team's behalf. So, a hitter might benefit from it, from being able to pick that out, but also like the times they get the benefit of the call, the pitcher or the catcher can reverse it on them. So, but the real thing that takes away any like meaningful boost, any meaningful projection boost or expectation boost would just be that you only get 2 a game, unless you get them right. Okay. So, but I just don't think a guy's going to be going for a challenge in the first inning or the first 3 innings and stuff. Like if I were a manager, I'd be like, let's just like, unless it's obviously wrong in the first, second, third, fourth inning, like let's not worry about that now. We'll save them. We don't want to be down into the 9th inning when in these pivotal moments of the game where you don't have any left. So I don't think it'll be that big of a thing, and I wouldn't adjust much. And even if I was going to adjust, I'm not sure exactly how I would do that. It seems kind of random anyway. So no, I wouldn't really worry about it. And the last one last year, the dumper, Cal Raleigh, was a catcher cheat code at a bargain draft price. This question is funny. This guy's Jefe. Is that what Tim has been calling the Jefe? I'm not sure. Maybe your name is really Jefe or Jeef or Jeff. Maybe you just typed it wrong. I don't know. So he's mad. This guy got beat in his fantasy last year, and he's super salty about it. So here's how I interpret his tone. Last year, the dumper was a catcher cheat code at a bargain draft price. A luck box title-winning lottery ticket for some schmo in my league who never won Jack in 10+ years. Is he worth paying up for this year? And can your mailbag podcast be posted as an article? Okay, how much can I do for you people? First of all, you want me to go type all these answers out every Friday? No, I'm not doing that. This podcast, you can probably get a transcript. I guess if you go to the Substack podcast, I think there's a transcript thing, so you can do that. All right, I'm not doing that for you. Stop asking me more stuff. Okay, I'm doing enough. But it is funny that you're mad about the guy that won your league having Cal Raleigh. And I'm sure that, many such cases of that last year where someone just kind of picked him. And that happens in fantasy sports, It happens less in baseball than fantasy football. But, man, fantasy football is pretty much all about, who drafted fill in the blank guy this year. Okay, well, they probably made the playoffs, or they, and if they had the guy that went off in the playoffs too, they probably won. Not much skill there. Baseball, not as much the case. One player can do a lot less overall than one player in other fantasy sports. So no, is Raleigh. So I'll tell you, Raleigh's ADP is 20. I mean, he's going to go 3-4 rounds ahead of the second catcher. I don't think he's going to go in the second or third round of every league. I don't think he's going to go that high in normal standard leagues, although probably not far off. No, I wouldn't do that. I would not take that price at all. He's not worth it to me. Now, if I'm wrong and he repeats, if he hits 50 home runs again, then he will be worth it. But the difference real maker is if you're in a batting average league, he kills you, maybe not kills you, but he's just kind of hurts, and he potentially could be really bad in batting average. Even last year, and where everything was going right for him, he still didn't hit for a good batting average. So paying for that in the second or third round, you're really banking on 50 bombs, 100 RBIs, and all that to repeat. And I just think there's a real chance, as a catcher, with all the randomness in the world we see, Aaron Judge has hit however many home runs the last 2 years, but just take the Aaron Judge example. And I don't think Cal Raleigh is Aaron Judge, so that's the first thing to say. But Judge has 53 homers last year. Judge had 58 homers in 2024. Judge had 62 homers in 2022. But then in 2023, okay, he missed 50 games. Okay, I guess it's not a good example. He hit 37 home runs, which is about probably the same pace. So damn it. Not a great example, but point being that just because a guy hits 50 home runs 1 year, like you think it's more likely that he'll do it again than it actually is. I really could see Raleigh going like 35 homers, 220 batting average. And that's not even to like, what if he gets hurt or something? You can say that about anything, but catchers are more likely to get hurt, and they're more likely to just not be as good at the plate because of all the stuff they're doing behind the plates as a defensive catcher, right? There's a lot of wear and tear. Not a young guy either, so I think it's a fish move to take the big primo price on him. And that's all. That was your question, I guess. I thought you asked me who the catcher breakout this year is, which you didn't, so I'm not even going to answer it. So that's it for the mailbag. Send in more questions for next week. We'll do this every Friday as long as we have some questions to answer. And subscribe, MLOD@warehouse.com. I got to go freaking talk to these work people. I don't know what they want, but we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.